Thank you for people who asked questions. Now, we're going to try to get Kingdonel in here. Let me see if I can invite him and start the next debate. I'm looking for him in my list of people. Let me send him an invite. Bear with me, guys. King.
Guys, like in May the 4th, we got these. You got Coco in his beautiful Finn cosplay.
I love the dress.
Me with this
Everyone's
bootleg. Oh, see ya. A bootleg Star Trooper mask that I made in 5 minutes.
Great.
Thanks, buddy.
Yep. Jeff4truth, thank you for being here. How are you feeling about the next debate, which is, have biblical prophecies been fulfilled, or did Jesus fulfill any prophecies?
I feel great about it.
Absolutely.
And,
I have to be
just so you know, Kingdonel and I have debated before, so we're familiar with each other.
Okay. So this is going to be it's a rivalry, and there's going to be some contention.
They're connected by the Force, I see.
Yeah, absolutely. They're like they're water and ice, or they're fire.
The light side and the dark side.
Yeah, that. But now we have Kingdonel up here. Thank you for coming, Kingdonel. It's an honor to host this debate with you and Jeff4truth. The topic is going to be, have biblical prophecies been fulfilled, or did Jesus fulfill any prophecies? Kingdonel, you think yes, so you're the affirmative.
Hey, that wasn't the debate topic, brother.
What do you mean?
It'll be the virgin birth in Isaiah 53.
Oh no, those were the prophecies that you guys agreed on, but the overall debate topic was, have biblical prophecies been fulfilled? But you guys agreed to 3 prophecies.
Yeah, we can hone in on those, but the overall topic is, did Jesus fulfill prophecy? And then we can't talk about everything in a short amount of time, but we can focus on those 2 if that's what you want.
Yeah. Are you still okay with that, Kingdonel?
I'm pretty sure that's what we said in the back chat when we was talking. I read it again today. I'm pretty sure that's what we agreed upon.
Yeah, you guys agreed to stick to those 3 prophecies, but the overall topic was going to be, have any prophecies been fulfilled, or did Jesus fulfill any prophecies? But if that's okay, we can move on to, you're going to start your opening statement, which is going to be 7 minutes. You don't have to use all of it, and then Jeff will do his, then cross-examinations, then conclusions. And whenever you're ready, we can start your opening statement.
All right, and I actually only did my research dealing with the virgin birth in Isaiah 53. So I want to start off by actually showing how the prophecies themselves, how they coexist and how they actually piggyback off one another, showing that the Messiah indeed went through a virgin birth, and he was the one prophesied in as the suffering servant. So once we go to Genesis 3:16, it states, "And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. He shall watch against thy head, and thou shalt watch against his heel." So according to Moses, the first introduction is the her seed. Okay, so now it's excluding the man here. Genesis 3:16 excluded the man. It went straight to the woman and said her seed. So once I go to Isaiah 7:14, which is another prophet that came after Moses, this is how Isaiah 7:14 piggybacked off of that same subject. Isaiah 7:14, "Therefore the Lord himself shall give you a sign. Behold, a virgin shall conceive in the womb, and shall bring forth a son, and thou shalt call his name Emmanuel." So you can see once again Isaiah sticking to the woman and her seed once again, leaving out the man. So once we get to Matthew 1:18, it states this. Now the birth of Jesus Christ took place in this way. When his mother Mary had been betrothed to Joseph, before they came together, she was found to be with child from the Holy Spirit. She will bear a son. This is Matthew 1:21-23. She will bear a son, and you shall call his name Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins. All this took place to fulfill what the Lord has spoken by the prophet. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which means God with us. So you see, once again, dealing with Mary. Mary is included, Joseph is excluded, going through the theme of her seed got to produce this child. Now, as we go venture on from the prophets to find out more about this child that was going to come from her seed, excluding a man, in Isaiah 9, it says this, starting in verse 6 and 7. For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders. His name will be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and of peace, there shall be no end on David's throne and on his kingdom, to establish it, to uphold it with justice and with righteousness from that time on, even forever. The zeal of Yahweh of armies will perform this, according to the Dead Sea Scroll. So we find out that this child is going to be born and given, and that given child to the nation of Israel, the increase of his government and peace shall be no end. So he has an everlasting increasing government, and that government is going to be of peace. David spoke about this same individual, so you can know, because this is David's throne. So he spoke about this same individual in the book of Psalms. Psalms 2:7-9 states this, declaring the ordinance of the Lord. The Lord said to me, thou art my son. Today I have begotten thee. Ask of me, and I will give thee the heathen for thine inheritance, and the ends of the earth for thy possession. Thou shalt rule them with a rod of iron, and shalt dash them into pieces as a potter's vessel. So we find out that this son has the inheritance of the heathen, and all of the ends of the earth was going to be his possession that he could rule over, aka the increase of his government shall be no end. So once we get to Isaiah 53 now, speaking on this same individual, this same son, when he grew up as a man, this is what's going on. Isaiah 53:12. Therefore he shall inherit many, and he shall divide the spoils of the mighty, because his soul was delivered to death. And you can read further on, but we see that the promise of the inheritance of many to that son who government is never going to have an end, this is the connection. So now, once we go to Psalms 22, speaking about how this individual was going to get this government, and which increases, Psalms 22:7. And they, all that saw me, mocked me. They spoke with their lips. They shook their head. He hoped in the Lord. Let him deliver him. Verse 16. For many dogs have compassed me. The assembly of the wicked doers beset me. They pierced my hands and my feet. According to Isaiah 53:8, in his humiliation, his judgment was taken away. Who shall declare his generation? For his life is taken away from the earth because of the iniquities of my people. He was led to death. Now Daniel speaks on this same person who went through this humiliation, whose judgment was taken away. Daniel 9:26. And after 62 weeks, the anointed one, we know the anointed one means Christ, Messiah. The anointed one shall be destroyed, and there is no judgment in him. See, Isaiah 53 said, who's going to declare his generation? And he said that individual was going to go through the humiliation, and his judgment was going to be taken away. And Daniel piggybacks on that, talking about how the anointed one was destroyed and there was no judgment in him, aka it was taken away. So as I finish up, Matthew 27:30, dealing with the Messiah, and they spit on him. Verse 31, they mocked him and led him away to crucify him. Verse 43, he trusts in God. Let God deliver him. Verse 50, and Jesus cried out again with a loud voice and yielded up his spirit. But we find out after the humiliation, after the death, that son who becomes a man would gain the authority. He would gain the possession of the nations. So after Christ died and resurrected, he made this statement in Matthew 28 and 18. And Jesus came and said to them, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. All of it goes back, all of it piggybacks off of one another. It all makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. And I guess you're ceding the rest of your time. How much time was left, Dream of Dawn?
5 seconds, so he did that perfectly.
That was a really good opener. And now we're going to hear Jeff4truth's opener. You get 7 minutes, and the time starts as soon as you say your first word, and Dream of Dawn will keep time.
All right. It is my position that there has never been a prophet and that all prophecy is a scam. In this debate, I will demonstrate how people have deceived others with an ancient art of deception that we call prophecy. No one has ever accurately predicted the future through divine revelation. There are 2 main methods people use to deceive others into believing in prophecy. The first method is to write about something that already happened, but pretend it was predicted by a prophet who lived before the event. This is how most prophecy is written in the Old Testament. Isaiah did not predict the Babylonian captivity. Isaiah was written after the events it describes. The same is true for Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, and every other so-called prophet. The same is true for Jesus. Jesus did not predict the destruction of the Jewish temple in 70 CE. The Christian Gospels were written after the temple was destroyed, and they lied about Jesus predicting the events. You can learn this by applying rational thinking to the actual evidence for the origins of these writings. There is no evidence that any biblical writing was written before the events being predicted, and it is foolish to presume divine revelation when all the evidence shows that people are willing to lie in order to convince you that their God is real. The second method of prophetic deception is to simply interpret a previous writing to be about your agenda, when the original writing had nothing to do with your interpretation. This is the method used for 100% of all prophecies attributed to Jesus. There is no Old Testament prophecy at all that predicted anything about Jesus. Every single prophecy that you have been told was about Jesus was originally about something totally different, and many of them were not even written as prophecies at all. For example, Isaiah 53 says, "Who has believed our message? To whom has Yahweh's arm been revealed? For he grew up before him as a tender plant and as a root out of dry ground. He was despised and rejected by men, a man of suffering and acquainted with disease. He has borne our sickness and carried our suffering." Isaiah 53 is clearly written about someone who suffered in the past and not as a prediction of a future suffering Messiah. The context around Isaiah 53 is all about the past suffering of God's servant Israel in Babylon. But Christians just reinterpret Isaiah 53 to be about the suffering of Jesus rather than the past suffering of Israel. Matthew 2 quotes Micah 5 to suggest the Messiah was prophesied to be born in Bethlehem, but the context of Micah 5 exposes this deception. Micah 1 says the word of the Lord came during the reigns of Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah concerning Samaria and Jerusalem. Micah 5:3 says Israel will be abandoned until the time when she who is in labor bears a son. So the woman was already in labor and a son was about to be born, according to Micah. Micah 5:5 says, "He, the ruler who comes out of Bethlehem, will be our peace when Assyria invades our land." Micah 5:6 says, "He will deliver us from the Assyrians when they invade our land." Jesus did not deliver Israel from Assyrian invasion, but Hezekiah did. Micah 5 is talking about Hezekiah, not Jesus. Matthew also says Jesus was born miraculously from a virgin mother in order to fulfill a prophecy from Isaiah 7:14. But the context of Isaiah 7 and 8 exposes the error. Isaiah 7:16 says, "Before the child knows to refuse evil and choose good, the land whose 2 kings you abhor will be forsaken." In Isaiah 8:3, a son is born, and verse 4 says, "Before the child knows how to say father or mother, the riches of Damascus and the plunder of Samaria will be carried away by the king of Assyria. So we have the prophecy and fulfillment in Isaiah 7 and 8, and it is not remotely about Jesus in any way. It was not even about a miraculous virgin birth. The prophecy was about how young the boy would be when God gave victory to King Ahaz over his enemies. Matthew 2:15 says Hosea 11:1 was a prophecy about Jesus coming out of Egypt. But Hosea 11:1 actually says, when Israel was a child, I loved him and I called my son out of Egypt. Matthew deliberately cut out the first part of the verse that identifies Israel as God's son and expects his reader to believe this was a prophecy about Jesus instead of a reference to Israel coming out of Egypt in the mythical story of Moses. Matthew is the only one to mention Jesus fleeing to Egypt, and the reason Matthew alone mentions it is because the author found another verse he could misinterpret and attribute to Jesus. The author just manufactured a false story about Jesus going to Egypt just so he could associate Hosea 11:1 with Jesus. For the sake of time, let me briefly mention one more false prophecy of Jesus from Zechariah 9:9, which says, Rejoice greatly, daughter of Zion. Shout, daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, your king comes to you, righteous and victorious, lowly, riding on a donkey, on a colt, on the foal of a donkey. The next verse, verse 10, says, He will cut off the chariots and war horses and battle bows from Israel, and he will speak peace to the nations. But Jesus did not end war in Israel. On the contrary, Jesus brought the complete destruction of Israel and Jerusalem and the Jewish temple. Jesus said in Matthew 10:34, I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. When I realized, as a Christian for over 40 years, when I realized that prophecy is just a scam, it was difficult for me to accept, but it is true. And I became an atheist after I realized the Bible is just a collection of lies. And I'm here to offer my services to anyone who is struggling to accept the reality that the Bible is not true and that the God you believe in was just created by men.
Okay, and with that, I think Jeff is ceding his time. How much more time do we have, Dream of Dawn?
We had 50 seconds left, so almost a full minute.
Good job, both participants, for having really timely opening statements. So now we're going to move on to cross-examination, where the affirmative is going to do their first round, 5-minute cross-examination. During this time, Kingdonel, it's your time to ask Jeff4truth questions and try to solidify your point, but delegitimize his point. Your 5-minute cross-examination will happen as soon as you say your first word, and Dream of Dawn will keep time.
Hey, Jeff, so before we get into Isaiah 53 and the prophecies, in Numbers 12 and verse 8, when the Lord is explaining that with Moses, he's going to speak mouth to mouth and not in riddles. But the other prophets didn't get the mouth to mouth, meaning they got the riddles. Do you agree or disagree that some of the quote unquote prophets spoke in riddles?
I'm not aware of any riddles in the Bible.
Okay, so even though Moses, this is another question. So even though Moses explained some of the prophets are going to get riddles, you don't comprehend, or you did not know that information?
I'm not aware of any riddles in the Bible.
Okay, thank you. So now we know that you don't understand how Moses said some of the prophets are supposed to be understood. So now here will be another question. The things that you are taking hyper literal to say that these things happened in the past, are they coming from some of the quote unquote prophets that Moses said was going to get riddles?
Are you suggesting that God speaks deliberately confusing so people don't understand?
I'm sure you can't answer a question with a question.
I don't know who. I don't think anybody prophesied. I don't believe in prophets. I believe in humans who lie and write books.
Okay, so even if you don't believe in prophets, the ones that's named prophets, you don't got to believe they're prophets or not. The ones that's named prophets, was it already demonstrated in Torah that those individuals named prophets, regardless if you believe them or not, was going to get riddles that you are taking hyper literal?
I'm not even familiar with Numbers chapter 12, whatever it talks about riddles. So if we're going to talk about Numbers 12, we need to read Numbers 12.
Okay, I have already read it. Okay, so let me go to Isaiah 53 now. So the part in Isaiah 53 that said that he would be led to his death, is that written that happened to whom we call Jesus the Christ?
Yeah, that's what's written in the story, yeah.
Okay. Do they call Isaiah a prophet?
Yeah, they call Isaiah a prophet, yeah.
Okay, bet. Okay, so you said that Isaiah 53 is not written about Jesus. So let me ask another thing about Jesus then. Isaiah 53 said that after his death, that this servant would inherit many. There's over 1 billion Christians right now. Does it seem like after Jesus' death, he inherited many?
I can't testify that Jesus received anything.
Okay, let me ask the question again. We have over 1 billion Christians now after Jesus died. So even if you don't believe the narrative, does the narrative show that after Jesus died, he inherited many?
No, dead people don't receive inheritances.
Okay, bet. So we're going to say that even though there's 1 billion Christians, Jesus didn't inherit nobody. Okay, so now
Dead people don't receive inheritances.
Okay, I got you. So now, Isaiah 53 and 5 says that, let me quote it, and he was pierced for our transgressions out of the ESV. Was Jesus pierced because of Israel's hatred?
Not in the past before Isaiah was written, because it says he was pierced, not he's going to be pierced.
Well, you have already understood, you have already said that you didn't even know that they wrote in riddles. So I don't know why you're quoting that. What I'm asking is that it says in Isaiah 53 and 5, he was pierced for our transgressions. Is there anywhere found in our Bible that a Jesus was pierced for the hatred of Israel?
Well, it doesn't say for the hatred of Israel, but the Bible, New Testament, does say Jesus was pierced.
Okay, thank you. So now that's once again, Isaiah was written before the New Testament. Here's the last thing. It was prophesied that Jerusalem was going to be destroyed. Did Jerusalem get destroyed?
Which prophecy are you talking about?
Any of them.
Israel was destroyed, but I'm not aware of the prophecy that you're referring to in the Old Testament.
Gonna have to cut you off here. We are out of time.
That would be the end of that cross-examination period. Now it's going to be Jeff's 5-minute cross-examination period. Jeff, during this time, you can ask questions in order to legitimize your point of view or delegitimize your opponent's point of view. Your 5 minutes will start when you say your first word, and it's going to be timed by Dream of Dawn.
All right, Donnell, is it possible to write a fictional story based off of things that were written in the past?
Yes, sir.
Is it possible that the New Testament was written as a fictional story by using the Old Testament as its model?
No, sir, because the things of the New Testament has been quoted to have happened through history, throughout historians.
No, the Bible is not. The New Testament events are not corroborated or verified through history, just as a point of record. So, is it more likely that God used to perform miracles and talk to people overtly and perform, overt signs of miracles, or is it more likely that people wrote fictional stories about God performing miracles and speaking to people?
Well, since it still happens today, I would say that it's very plausible that it happened back then as well, because it still happens today.
Who does God speak to today?
If you actually go to YouTube, you can actually do this on your own. You will see a plethora, thousands and thousands of videos in which people who have went through near-death experiences have spoken to Christ, have spoken to the Father, as well as people who have been converted over into Christianity from different religions have said that they have heard from Christ or the Father.
Okay, God just came to me and he told me that he never spoke to anybody in the past. Now, do you believe what I just said?
Well, first of all, if God came and spoke to you, that would actually defeat your whole purpose that God doesn't come and speak to people. So I think that doesn't even make sense, Jeff.
Okay, I'm making a point here. Do you, just because someone says that they spoke to God or heard from God, do you just automatically believe when people say they talk to God?
Jeff, I don't believe that thousands of people are lying in order for you to feel good.
So, are you aware that Christians are constantly saying that Jesus is going to return any day now?
Yes, sir.
Do you believe God spoke to them?
I believe God has spoken to them in their life. It doesn't matter if they're confused about eschatology or not.
Okay, so just for the record, everyone, Kingdonel and I both agree that Jesus is not going to be coming back in the future. So I know that he does not believe that when Christians say, oh, I had a dream or a vision that Jesus is coming back soon and it's imminent and they're crying on TikTok, that even Donnell will say they are wrong, they are confused. So you admit then, King Donnell, that people can think they heard from God and they really didn't, right?
Well, you just misrepresented me. The Lord can show them anything that the Lord wants to show them at that time. Everything is done in order, so there's still time for them to actually understand more and more what's going on. So yes, I would say it's infallible that the Lord indeed is still talking to anybody that he want to talk to and show them anything he want to show them at that time.
Okay, so when someone gets on TikTok and cries and said they had a dream last night and Jesus came to them in a vision and said that he was coming very soon, do you believe that person actually spoke to God or that they imagined that?
Yes, I believe God works through dreams, so they indeed spoke to him and he showed them exactly what they needed to see at that time. Because some people don't need eschatology. Some people need something to link.
Okay, that's enough. I'm running out of time. So do you believe God deliberately confuses people and says things that are not true?
It's not a confusion.
If he comes to someone and says, you better get scared because I'm coming soon to burn the world with fire, and if that's not what he's really going to do, that means God is a liar.
Well, that's your take, and you're trying to explain how you feel about God. That's just your take, Jeff. That ain't everybody.
You would take it that way too, because do you believe Jesus is ever going to come back in the future, Donnell?
I believe that Christ comes in everybody's, when people are just ready for Christ, I believe he comes for them.
Do you believe Jesus is literally going to come in the sky so that people see him with their physical eyes and he's going to burn the earth with fire?
Okay, see, that's a different question from what you just stated. I believe all biblical prophecies have been fulfilled.
Okay, so when a person says Jesus came to me in a dream and told me that he's coming very soon to burn the earth with fire, would you admit that this person did not hear from God but convinced himself that or imagined it?
No, Jeff. I would say that the Lord is meeting them where they are at the moment, Jeff.
Okay. How much time? 5 seconds? 4 seconds? All right, we're done.
Okay. With that, that will end the first cross-examination period. We're now going to move into the second round cross-examination period. King Donnell, just like the first round, you're going to have, let me check. My brain is like terrible.
Should be 5 minutes, right?
Yeah, 5 minutes for your cross-examination period. Ask questions to legitimize your position, but delegitimize your opponents. The 5 minutes will start whenever you say your first word, and Dream of Dawn will keep time.
Before we start, just remember, guys, keep tapping that like, okay? We need to get this out to as many people as possible to inflate Finn's ego.
Oh,
Anyway.
absolutely.
I'm good when you are, so first word, and I'll start the timer.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to read John 20 and 29. Jesus said to him, "Have you believed because you have seen me? Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." What does that mean to you, Jeff?
That you're supposed to believe without evidence, which is a scam.
Okay, thank you. So that's one. So now, when we have in the Bible that Christ stated all of the prophecies in the Bible was going to be fulfilled by the destruction of Jerusalem 70 AD. If it's a sham, which prophecy wasn't fulfilled by that time?
Well, off the top of my head, I can go to Jeremiah 33, which says, David will never cease to have a king sitting on the throne, and the Levites will never cease to offer animal sacrifices continually. So Jeremiah 33 is one. Zechariah 12 or 14 somewhere says, whoever does not come to Israel and worship at the Feast of Booths, God will withhold rain from that country so that they starve to death. That has not happened.
Okay, so now, as you already stated that you don't understand prophetic riddles, was there a curse that came after that prophecy in Jeremiah that caused the lineage, the earthly lineage of David to cease on reigning on the throne?
So I know you're referring to, the curse. Oh shoot, what's his name? Jeconiah, yeah. So God lied then. So God said David will never cease to have a king sitting on the throne, and then turns out God was wrong.
So your first premise, let me get this right. Your first premise was that was a failed prophecy. But then once we show that the curse stopped that prophecy, now it's not a failed prophecy. God is wrong. That's what you're saying, correct?
So is God all-knowing or not?
Well, I'm asking you, is that what you said?
So I'm saying that the Bible is not the infallible word of God, so it's got contradictions all throughout it. So when God says that David will never cease to have a king sitting on the throne, and then he says, "Oh, change my mind. Now no Davidic king will sit on the throne."
Okay, so now once again, so we disprove what you just stated. It's not biblical because we can see when the prophecy actually stopped. So now here's Zechariah 14. You said that all people were supposed to be coming up to Jerusalem to worship the Lord. Does it also say to keep the Feast of Tabernacles in there?
It says whoever doesn't come to Jerusalem and worship at the Feast of Booths, God will withhold rain so that they die or starve.
Okay, thank you. Jeff, is the Feast of Booths, is that the old covenant tradition or a new covenant tradition?
It's a Jewish tradition. It's Old Testament Jewish.
All right, so Old Testament, Old Covenant. Okay, so Jeff, if we are in the New Covenant and you try to use something as the Old Covenant, does that mean it still should go on or it doesn't go on, Jeff?
Well, the Old Covenant said that his laws and his feast days should be observed forever throughout all generations. That's what the Old Testament says.
Okay, so the Hebrew word for forever is olam. Jeff, does the word olam means forever, not ending, or it means a long time?
It can probably be used in different ways, but I would say it just means for a long time in general.
Okay, thank you. So was it did they have the laws and the feast days for a long time?
But he said for all generations. He didn't just say for olam. He said for all generations.
Well, olam and all generations cannot be separated, or do you say they can be separated?
Yeah, they're different. Yeah, they're different.
Okay, but even though he said it in the same pretense. Okay, so now let's keep going on then, Jeff. Is there any other prophecies that spoke of Jesus that you say doesn't actually deal with Jesus? Can you give us an example of that prophecy again?
Well, I mean, Isaiah 7:14, Isaiah 7:14 or Isaiah 53.
Okay, but Isaiah 7.
Neither one of them are about Jesus.
Okay, Isaiah 7:14 states that a virgin is going to conceive and bear a son. Did that happen in the New Testament?
In the fictional story, sure.
Okay, but it happened, no matter if it's a fictional story or not. So now, can we apply that to Jesus, even if it's a fictional story?
It was applied to Jesus as a fictional story, yes.
Okay, thank you. My time is over.
Are you ceding the rest of your time?
Oh yeah, I only had like 3 seconds left. I'm taking time. I'm taking the time as well.
Didn't want those 3 valuable seconds?
No, I think I did enough.
Okay, and with that, we're going to move on to Jeff4truth. It's your second round, 5-minute cross-examination. Ask questions to legitimize your position, delegitimize your opponent. It'll start whenever you say your first word, timed by Dream of Dawn.
Okay, so since we're in Isaiah 7, Isaiah 7:14 says, "Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. A virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and will call him Emmanuel." Was Jesus' name Emmanuel?
Yes, he was in fact God with them.
Was he named Emmanuel?
Call his name, that means authority. So yes.
Did anybody call Jesus Emmanuel?
Name means authority to the Hebrews, so yes.
Okay. So are you aware of anybody else that was called Emmanuel in Isaiah chapter 8, maybe?
Yeah, in Isaiah chapter 8, the people themselves was called Emmanuel.
Well, there's an actual son who was born in chapter 8. You know who the son was born in chapter 8?
Yeah, they didn't call his name Emmanuel. Yes, I know that son.
So in the first few verses it says, "So I called Uriah the priest and Zechariah son of Jeberechiah and reliable witness. Then I made love to the prophetess, and she conceived and gave birth to a son. And the Lord said to me, name him Maher-shalal-hash-baz, for before the boy knows how to say father and mother, the wealth of Damascus and the plunder of Samaria will be carried off to Syria." So this boy was born in chapter 8, and it says, while this boy is still really young, he can't say father or mother yet, then these two countries that have come against, he has in war will be carried away in the plunder to Syria. Now, Isaiah 7 verse 16 says, "Before that boy knows enough to reject the wrong and choose the right, land of the two kings that you dread will be laid waste. The Lord will bring on you people and on your house of your father a time like this, since Ephraim broke away from Judah. He will bring the king of Assyria." It says that this boy is old enough to know right from wrong. The Assyrian invasion will destroy your enemies. And in chapter 8, there's a boy who is born, and before he's old enough to know right from wrong, the kingdom of Assyria comes and destroys Ahaz's enemies. How is that not a direct reference in the very next chapter? It's talking about the exact same thing, an Assyrian invasion, and a boy that was going to be really young. It doesn't say anything. So here's the question. Does Isaiah 7 say anything about a Messiah?
Okay, so now let's okay, first of all, the answer is yes.
Where?
Okay, thank you for asking that. The child that was going to be born by the woman's seed, which you left out, was verse 11. The Lord says, "Ask a sign of your Lord. Let it be as deep as Sheol or high as heaven." So according to Isaiah, the sign was either going to be in heaven or on earth. And you are insinuating that the sign there was on earth. First of all, that son there, the one in chapter 8, his name don't even have anything to do with God with us. So you made that up. But in Isaiah 7, that son that was going to be shown in the sky as a heavenly sign, yes, Moses spoke about that same son in Genesis, and that was the prelude to the Messiah. So yeah, they all knew that was the Messiah. Yeah.
So you see how you had to run around the world. So Isaiah 7 and 8 never mentions the word Messiah. Will you admit that Isaiah 7 and 8 never uses the word Messiah?
Right. Yeah, they never used the word Messiah.
So you have to interject Messiah into something that's talking about. So do you understand in Isaiah 7 verse 16, it says, do you think Isaiah 7:16 is referencing the same boy that's prophesied in Isaiah 7:14, only 2 verses earlier?
That boy in Isaiah 7 and 14, according to Isaiah 7 and 11, was a sign that was going to be given on earth or in heaven, Jeff. So if the sign is given in heaven, Jeff, it's not a real boy at that time, Jeff.
So can Ahaz see what's going on in heaven?
It wasn't said Ahaz, it said the house of David. Would you like me to read it?
No.
Okay.
So I want you to clarify. It says in verse 16, "For before the boy," who is the boy? Is that Jesus, or is this talking about whoever is being prophesied in verse 14?
The prophesied one that was going to be seen in the heavens.
Okay, so this boy that is being prophesied, it says, "Before that boy knows enough to reject the wrong and choose the right, the land of the two kings you dread will be laid waste." What has that got to do with Jesus?
First of all, that happened before Jesus was born. So before he was able to do all of that, that happens, Jeff.
We are out of time.
Okay, so that's going to conclude Jeff's 5-minute cross-examination. So now we're going to move on to closing statements. The affirmative is going to get their 3 minutes, which would be Kingdonel, and then Jeff4truth, you're going to get your 3 minutes. So Kingdonel, your 3 minutes will start as soon as you say your first word, and Dream of Dawn will keep time.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Jeff, for once again having a debate. I'm sorry that I beat you that first time and made you become atheist, but now it seems like that is still happening. So hopefully this one will make you actually come back to Christ. Jeff, even in Jeff's Christian walk, he never actually really studied the Bible. That's why I'm asking him things that he's supposed to know, and he doesn't even know that these things even exist in the Bible. So how can he come and have a debate about the Bible and what's fake and what's phony if you don't even know the information pertaining in it? See, you just grab 1 or 2 or 3 things and you ran with it. This is a whole Bible. This is a whole book. You need to study it for years before you even try to teach it or understand it, Mr. Jeff. Mr. Jeff didn't even know that this was a sign. Isaiah 53 was a sign in heaven. And how do we know it was a sign in heaven? Because once we go to Revelation 12, which speaks on this same sign of a virgin given a woman in Revelation 12, guess where John said he saw that at? In heaven. So obviously, the in heaven sign was the woman giving the birth to the son. And Jeff thought it was someone on earth when Isaiah was writing that, and he insinuated that it was what was going on in Isaiah 8 with no proof. Also, Jeff believes that the prophets are just going around making up stuff. And once you actually look at the dating of the ancient works, aka the Old Testament, with the dating of the New Testament, Jeff was saying, oh no, they just put that all together. They just made that all together. And Rome had something to do with it. Meanwhile, Rome don't say they have anything to do with it. Rome didn't even like the Jews like that. This is just how a person who's an atheist got to make it work, because for some reason God didn't do something for them that they don't like. So now it's their duty to try to destroy God. We're not going to live in that type of world, Jeff. We're going to bring the truth. And the truth is, the only way you're going to be able to understand spiritual things is with the spirit. So you're going to always be fighting against the spirit of the Lord who actually created everything, because you don't understand him yet. So I asked you to get off of TikTok, Jeff, and start praying and fasting again. Leave TikTok alone. Okay, leave it alone. Leave all that other stuff alone, because you're not going to be able to prove your foundation, because it's false. At the end of the day, it's false, and it's not going to be able to prove it. I prove once again from Old and New Testament that it's talking about the same thing. And once I asked Jeff, Jeff said, oh, it's just fiction. Oh, they just made it up. Come back to the Bible. Thank you.
And that will conclude your closing statement. Jeff4truth, it's now your turn. 3 minutes on the clock. You'll start once you say your first word, timed by Dream of Dawn.
All right, so it's really sad that there are so many people that will deliberately lie and deceive themselves and allow themselves to be brainwashed and refuse the words on the page. It doesn't. So, and by the way, I have studied the Bible for many, many years, and I know it extremely well. And I know that when you read the context of Isaiah 7 and 8, it has nothing to do with Jesus, and it's speaking in the past tense, and it's talking about things that happened, and it's talking about an Assyrian invasion. And the same is true for Isaiah 53. If you will just read Isaiah, like the 10 or 12 chapters prior to Isaiah 53, starting in Isaiah 41, you will see that it says over and over that Israel is God's son, Israel is God's servant, and that God has redeemed Israel from Babylonian captivity. That's what the entire context is about for 10, 15 chapters around Isaiah 53. It specifically identifies Israel as God's servant. And the same is true for, in the Old Testament, Israel was God's son. When Moses went to Pharaoh in the fictional story of the Exodus, And he says, hey, because you have held my firstborn son, this is what God says, you have held my firstborn son, therefore I am going to take away your firstborn son. So he sends a plague on Egypt to take away their firstborn sons. In the Old Testament, Israel was God's son. In the New Testament, which was written after the Romans destroyed the Jews in war, and it's written in the Greek language because the Romans were Hellenizing the Jewish world, and so they destroyed them in war, and then they rewrote and reinterpreted their holy scriptures, and they changed the Son of God and the servant of God from Israel to Jesus. Jesus was purely a fictional character made up in the imagination of Greek philosophers who just found texts like Psalm 22 and Isaiah 53 and even Genesis 3:15 that you brought up. They said, let's change it and say that everything's pointing to Jesus when actually everything was talking about Israel, the nation of Israel. Yahweh was the God of Israel. And the Old Testament is the scriptures, the holy scriptures and the religion of the Israelites. It was not true that God never showed up and talked to anybody, but this was their foundation for their false religion. So the New Testament is simply a fictional story written with Greek philosophy in mind as they were Hellenizing the world and destroying the Jews in war. There were major wars between the Romans and the Jews in the 1st and 2nd century, which was the exact same time that Christianity shows up on earth. And, I brought up Hosea 11:1, which says, when Jacob was a child, I loved him and I called my son out of Egypt. Am I out of time?
We are out of time. Sorry.
And that will conclude the final closing statements. Once again, I would like to say thank you guys for coming on my panel out of all the panels out there to compete and debate. I really appreciate that. If both of you want to debate in the future, just let me know and I will gladly schedule another debate with any opponent, anytime, any place. I keep hosting these events. I keep creating them. I will keep doing them. Thank you both. As of right now,
say for what the riddles were?
not yet, but we will. You'll be the first
Darn
guest.
it.
You'll be the first guest to speak in the upcoming. It's supposed to be a 20-minute time for the audience, but we are a couple minutes behind. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to do a 13-minute section where the audience can come up and ask any questions.
The audience is asking for the poll already.
Oh yeah, and we will put up the poll. But yeah, we're gonna have like a 13-minute section where the audience can come up and ask questions to either of the contestants or just say your thoughts on the debate that we just had. So Dream of Dawn, if you can, just add
13-minute timer.
Keep the timer for 13 minutes, and yeah, we'll do audience points and questions. Angel, you can go first.
Thank you. I've been keeping. So, riddles are technically parables. I think that's what they're trying to come across, Jeff.
Oh, Jeff, what do you think about that?
So, the Bible also says that God is not the author of confusion. So this is what we're doing is pointing out a contradiction. If on the one hand, he says that, God speaks in, he works in mysterious ways and you can't understand what he says. And then on the other hand, he says, well, God's not the author of confusion. That's a contradiction. So God can either speak clearly and prove that he's God, or we can all interpret riddles however we want.
Parables.
Okay. With that, thank you, Angel, for your points and comment. Big Op, you were up here first. So do you have any comments on the debate or any questions, points?
No, I'm not gonna lie, bro. I didn't even try to request up, so I'm gonna drop down, and my fault, bro.
Oh, actually, before you drop down, let me check. I think you are the next debate, so you can stay up here, actually.
Shoot ya. Yeah, bet.
Yeah, and Jesse, if you're in here, you are the next debate. So Jesse, if you could get up here, that'd be great. Next debate's going to be, does the Christian God exist? Jesse versus Big Op. But John Boyd, do you have any points, criticisms, questions for any of the debaters?
What's the topic?
Wait, were you here for the debate?
I don't think they were here.
No, I don't think I was.
Okay, well, I would just say stick around for the other debates, and we're happy to have you. I have 5 guests I'm going to bring up. The first person I saw was Shark. So I'm going to get Shark's question in. And thank you, Jesse, for being here. It's good that you're early. Thank you. Shark, you can go, and then Theologos can go.
My question is for Jeff. What does 50% of what you said about people's interpretations or dream states have to do with the proposition of the debate?
We were talking about whether or not God speaks to humans or not. And I'm saying that God doesn't speak to humans and that people are delusional and they either lie or they're brainwashed to believe lies.
The proposition of the debate was?
Did Jesus fulfill prophecies?
Hey, can you put up what the proposition was again? Can we see that picture?
Yeah, I can do it one more time. Give me 1 sec. And I will flip my camera. Hold on.
So did Jesus fulfill any prophecies? My answer is no. And I'm saying that there's never even been a prophecy, so he can't fulfill something. It's just people interpreting things and telling fictional stories to associate it with other writings.
So you guys were debating 2 propositions at once?
It was supposed to be a combined proposition, according to what was discussed in the DMs.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, King, great job. Jeff, you got driven over by a truck driver. Love you, King.
Bye, Shark.
But okay, with that, we're going to move to our next point in criticism or questions for the competitors. Theologos, do you have anything for us?
Yeah, this question is for Jeff. Can you hear me, by the way?
Yeah.
So, Jeff, so you are referring to Pesher, is when Jews would reinterpret scripture. So being as Pesher was a literary tool used in the first century by just about every Jew, and it was seen as a legitimate tool to identify the Messiah. They used it with the teacher of righteousness. They used it with Simon Bar Kokhba. They used it with Judas Maccabees. And Jews didn't see it as an illegitimate tool. On what basis are you saying that this is an illegitimate form of interpretation when almost every Jew in the first century thought it was legitimate?
So just reinterpreting it, anything in order to fit your agenda is definitely a scam. So if God is going to predict the future, he needs to predict it in a way that people can't just interpret it however they want. Like if I say, hey, it's going to rain sometime in the future, I'm not a prophet. God didn't come to me and tell me, hey, it's going to rain sometime in the future. And then it rains sometime in the future. Oh my goodness, there's a prophet. So God has an obligation to demonstrate that he can actually predict the future, not that people can just interpret whatever he says in every single way that they want to throughout time. That is an absolute scam.
I'm going to restate my question. I'm not sure if you got the basis of it. So on what basis are you saying that this is an illegitimate form of Jewish interpretation?
Because it doesn't prove that God ever predicted the future. All it does is prove that people can interpret whatever they want to fit whatever narrative they want to tell. That completely destroys any ideology that God actually told people what the future is. If you think it's legitimate to just interpret things however you want, then you don't believe in prophecy either. You just believe in interpreting things to fit your agenda.
I think so. I'm going to ask my question one last time. So, on what literary basis? Because you're bringing theology into the question. So, on what literary basis or literary methodology are you saying that this is not a legitimate form of Jewish interpretation to an ancient Jew?
So, Wayne, I even said in my opening statement that one of the 2 main ways that people lie and deceive people about prophecy is they simply just reinterpret it to fit whatever they want it to say. That is not a legitimate evidence of prophecy. That's just evidence that people interpret things to fit their agenda. So I know that's what they did. This is the primary tool that people use to say that God prophesied something. But it is an illegitimate tool when you want to say, did God actually prophesy this? Or are people just lying and scamming and interpreting things to fit their agenda?
Just your literary basis?
I've already answered it 3 times.
Okay. We can go on to the next question. Rhaegar, what do you have for us in questions, critiques, points? But thank you for being here. Sorry that I said that kind of weird. I'm trying to make a poll at the moment.
No problem. Don't be respectful, host. Look, why couldn't Luke find love? He was looking at all the wrong places. Anyways, look, my question for King here was, where did you learn all of this biblical theology here, and how difficult was it searching through the verses to sort of satisfy the narrative you wanted to present here today?
First, I have a library, and I study ancient Near Eastern understanding as well as the understanding for the Israelites. So I made sure I was well equipped in these areas before I actually got online and wanted to teach a Bible or anything. And getting these verses are quite easy once you surrender yourself over and let the Lord actually teach you. So I came with the understanding of the debate was going to be about one broader topic and not something as vast as all prophecies. And I got the pictures on my page to show that that's the reason why I'm debating these subjects how I am, because it was already explained that I would not have enough time, 7 minutes, to go through all of the prophecies. So I had to change up some of the things that I was doing in order for this not to seem sloppy. But this isn't my original things that I actually made for the debate. But it's pretty easy, hopefully that answered your question.
Okay, with that, we can move on to the next question, Vizzy. But before we get to Vizzy, Dream of Dawn, how many more minutes do we have on the timer?
All right, I'll check that in a second just because I'm getting some food.
Oh, no, you're good. Okay, but yeah, Vizzy, go ahead. You're the next question. Thank you for being here, by the way.
What's good? I wanted to ask King Don. So if you think Daniel 9 is about, Jesus in his time, right? Daniel 9:27 says, for half a week, the prince will put an end to suffering. Can you tell me how, and half a week is like less than 7 days. Can you tell me how this fits with the context of Jesus, in the time of Jesus, where an end to sacrifice was put for just a few years?
I think you have a presupposition that 7 days is actually 7 days. Daniel's.
No, I did say 7 days.
Well, tell me what you said.
I said it's like a few. Oh, I said it was like less than 5 days, but I know it's like years. But yeah, it's years, so it's a few years. So can you tell me how it fits in the time of Jesus, where sacrifice was put just for a few years?
Okay, thank you. So now, as I was continuing to give my response, the 70 weeks of Daniel is broken down in moeds. Moeds is dealing with feast days references. So what Daniel was explaining, he's explaining the last 10 Jubilee periods in which the final judgment was going to occur, because he was in the Babylonian captivity from the first 10 Jubilee period where that judgment occurred. So the angel told him about the last 10 Jubilees. So when Christ came in speaking on proclaiming the final Jubilee in Luke chapter 4, what followed was the destruction and the killing of his saints, which Daniel proclaimed as the quote-unquote sacrifice and offerings. So the sacrifice and offerings was going to cease after the number of saints was killed. This is your Revelation chapter 6. And when that number of saints was killed, and as in Revelation 6, Revelation 7 explains that the inheritance is given to those that's dead, and then judgment follows, as in Revelation 8, dealing with atonement. So to make a long story short, what Daniel was explaining is that what was going to happen during the time of the final judgment and the final atonement and the final tabernacles. And that all centered around Christ, his ministry, and what happened to the church. That's going to be the easiest way I can explain it.
I don't. Yeah, that didn't really answer the question, but I'm not gonna ask any more questions. I'm just gonna like give everyone else a chance. But appreciate you responding though.
Okay, thank you for your question. Jesus, what question, points, critiques for both of the debaters?
Yeah, so just to Jeff, so like the prompt, like specifically the prompt, right? It says, have biblical prophecies been fulfilled? I felt like you sort of conceded that they had been within the book, but then you sort of argued that all the prophecies are fake, which I just don't see as like actually like valuable when it comes to the actual debate. I mean, there's one point where you said that this specific prophecy was fulfilled in the next chapter, which sort of seeded the entire, prompt. I was wondering if like you think that
So we mostly talked about Isaiah 7 and Isaiah 53, and both of them are talking about things that happened in the past. That's not even a prophecy. So Jesus can't fulfill something that was not even a prophecy. So Jesus did not fulfill prophecy because the things that people are pointing to are not even prophecies. They're not even predictions of the future.
Yeah, I just wanted clarification on that because I heard you say that that this I just heard you I don't know if it was verbatim, but you essentially said that this was fulfilled in the next chapter and wasn't applied to Jesus, right? So I was just confused on how that would go with the prompt if you're saying that they were never fulfilled or any biblical.
Well, Isaiah chapter 8 talks about the boy that was going to be born in Isaiah 7, and in order to write a story, if you write Isaiah 8 and Isaiah 7, then that means you're writing about things that happened in the past. It says, and this boy was born. So it's easy to write about the past. It's hard to write about the future. So Isaiah 7 and 8 were written probably at the same time about the same event. And so obviously the boy had already been born. So that was not a prophecy. It's somebody writing and saying, this boy was a prophecy. It's a scam. All prophecy is a scam.
Thank you. That's all I had a question. Yeah, and I will say I am an atheist. I was just confused on it. So, but thank you.
Absolutely. And let's see. Can we do a time check? Are we good?
Actually, out of time, out of the 13 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. We should get on it. I'm not sure if we can take any more questions, but maybe if we have time in the future, we will definitely accept more questions. We got Jesse here. We're just waiting for Big Op. But thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Kingdonel, for being here. Thank you guys for debating. If you guys want a rematch or a debate in the future, let me know, and I will put you on the next quickest debate events that I can get you guys on.
All right. Thanks, Coco. I'm signing off.
Absolutely. Very, very much appreciated. We appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Shalom.